Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. Hey, and welcome to the iLife Academy Coaching Podcast. This is Abdul Shahid from Reconnecting.tv, and we're on episode 31. And we're going to be talking about negative thoughts, or what you might call waswas, or even self-sabotage. There's a connection there. So we're going to be talking about how to deal with all the negative stuff that's going through your mind, about states of mind. But look, here's the thing. This is a life coaching podcast. Like, this is where I help you to help yourself and to help your clients. Like, I train coaches, so like I'm talking to you coaches, but I also work with people who are not coaches, like entrepreneurs, business people, like just general professionals, right? Now, the common thing that we all have, regardless of what our job is that we all have trouble with our thoughts. That's the common thing, right? And everyone has this. Like, one of the biggest problems that we as individuals face is that we think that we're in it alone. Like, it's just me that's having this trouble. But I can assure you, like, I work with people, and I have been for years, and it is simply something common that every human being experiences. So we're going to be talking about this, but although we're talking about negative thoughts, I want to keep it super positive, because look, really, like, you can change your life. You can change the way you're experiencing life if you can just figure this one thing out, right? Now, I know that sounds, like, not that long ago, I was talking about negative thoughts, and someone posted a message to me about, what's a great book? Well, the truth is, there are lots of great books, but they're just pieces of the puzzle, and they don't all go direct to the problem. And a lot of the times, one of the problems that we've got is it's just a lot of these books, they're full of fluff, like filler. Like, they give you some solid information that could possibly really help you, and then they fill it up with lots of filler, lots of stuff that's a little bit useless. So I'm not going to name any books that you're going to read, and as I didn't in that message that I got, I didn't go back and say, oh, this is a great book, because look, there are some great books, but you're going to have to piece it together. So in this podcast, what I want to do is I want to help you to actually piece it together. I want to cut out the filler, cut out all the fluff, so that we can get straight to the point. How do you help yourself? Because a lot of times we tell ourselves that we have no ability to deal with the problem of negative thoughts. And then we battle ourselves to deal with these thoughts, right? Like, look at the irony in that. We tell ourselves that we don't have the ability to deal with it, and then we stay in this constant state of battle. And you end up feeling like you can't handle it. And guess what? When you tell yourself you can't deal with it, you don't have the ability, and then you tell yourself you can't handle it, you're going to struggle. You're really going to struggle. So, I wanted to talk about this subject, as I know a lot of you struggle with this. A lot of you struggle with negative thoughts daily. And let me just tell you, once again, you are not alone. You are not alone. And this is not about what job you have, how educated you are, about how professional you are, whether you're a coach or a therapist. Like, trust me, I coach therapists and people who are specialists in, who are well trained in psychology, and they are struggling with the same problem, right? So it's not, it's a human problem, and you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. Now, let's take a look at what negative thoughts are anyway, right? Now, there are different sources of it, and we're not going to go into all of them, but let me just give you a couple, right? Now, one of the predominant negative triggers or sources of these horrible thoughts that we have is waswas, right? Like the whispers, right? Now that could be the whispers of the shayateen, or it could be like the negative whispers of people like say negative things, and you innocently pick it up and believe it to be true. And I get this all the time. I get people saying stuff to me like, such and such a person with such credentials, like they obviously know what they're talking about. In other words, they told me that I might have bipolar, or I might have, schizophrenia. Or I might have, and so you have random people like going around telling people that they have like, medical illnesses. Like that, even if you're a professional, you wouldn't do that, right? You wouldn't do that without diagnosis. You wouldn't do that without actually looking into the person's situation, right? But you have people who actually tell each other, and look, that's like the that's a bad example, meaning it's like a worst case scenario maybe, right? But the truth is, people do this. People tell each other about what they think the other might have, and then you innocently take it on and you believe that okay, I might have a real problem there. I might have this condition, and if I've got that condition and you believe you've got that condition, guess what? You're going to start feeling like really, really horrible, because whatever your thoughts are, they're going to play out in your feelings. And if you really, really believe it, you're really going to get stuck in that feeling. So that's one of the ways, right? It could be waswas or the shayateen, or it could be just like people telling you like really dodgy, giving you dodgy information, right? So that's where some of the negative input comes in from. But we also have, I mean, the waswas, that's a pretty major component. Look, you can't go through life without waswas, right? You can't go through life without those negative thoughts that are constantly there, like they come and go, right? And they're usually like telling you about yourself, how much of a loser you are, or how bad you are, or how worthy you are not. Like we tend to demolish ourselves, and then you look around and you look for evidence in your life for why these thoughts are actually true. And when you do that, you really spiral down. And this is what happens. This is how people get into really bad mental health situations, because their mental health deteriorates the more they believe this stuff, right? So there's two ways that most people deal with it. One is that you can get all obsessed with those thoughts and feelings, and you can imagine, like, if you get obsessed with a thought or a feeling, like with any thought, you're essentially obsessed with the feeling, and you're really gonna like take a deep dive into that feeling, even though you hate it, you don't like it, right? So that's one way. And the second thing that people do is that people get lost in the feeling. They get lost in the feeling, and then they don't understand why they're feeling what they're feeling. And imagine, and I want you to imagine feelings like this. Feeling is like a can of grey paint, dark grey paint, right? And you're swimming in this dark grey paint. You take this paint and you cover your whole life with it. You paint your whole life with it. And then before long, everything you look at in your life looks grey. Everything you look at looks grey. It looks, it has a tint of grey. It looks a little bit boring, unexciting, like you feel like you haven't achieved much. You feel like you're no good. You're a lazy bum. And look, I'm being polite there, because, when I'm talking to people and they're telling me about what they think about themselves, like they do not, that's being polite when you call yourself a lazy bum. People are calling themselves way, worse, or, like much, much, much worse things, right? And you know yourself. If you are someone that, gives yourself a hard time because of the negative thoughts and the negative feelings that you're experiencing, then you know that you are giving yourself a really, really hard time, right? So look, so what's the remedy? What is the remedy? How do we fix this? How do we change this? So how can you stop, or how can you help yourself stop swimming in negative feelings and negative thoughts? So I'm going to give you two ways, right? Well, we'll focus on one, but let me just say that to deal with, waswas or whispers of the shayateen, or like people even, it's really important to understand that this is actually a normal part of life. Like, you cannot just, delete negative thoughts out of your life, or even negative feelings. You can't just delete it out of your life. That's just not human. Like, every human being has it. So the biggest thing is that you become aware of that it's just a thought which is creating a feeling, right? Now, the problem that most people have is that they believe it's true, that they believe it means something about them, right? So if you can stop believing that these thoughts actually mean something about you, then that's the first step towards changing everything, because you can't get rid of waswas permanently. Now, we know that obviously, the more connected you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you are okay, right? The better you're going to feel. But if you really get stuck in that feeling, in that thought, right? If you get stuck in that thought and you hold on to it, which is what people do, right? They take a thought and they sit there and ruminate on it, and they constantly have it going round and round and round in their thoughts, in their mind. And the more you do that, the worse you feel. And it's because you believe in that moment, even though it's not something which is believable, you actually start believing that negative thought about yourself. And ultimately, if you're thinking negative thoughts and you're swimming in those thoughts, you're like, you're not coming out of it, you're choosing to stay in it, then you're going to start feeling all of those horrible feelings that thought generates. And if that happens, then what that will do is that it will affect the way that you behave. It will affect the way you behave. I mean, ask yourself, when you get angry or upset, how does that affect the way you show up in your world, in your day? How do you then communicate with people around you? How does that feeling manifest in your actions and your behavior when you are fully immersed in that feeling? It's really, really important to ask yourself this question. Like, if you need to, pause this right now and ask yourself that question. Because what you're going to see is that it will show you the results of such thinking. You see, this is what's really going on. You see, most people are sat there thinking that the situation that they find themselves in is actually causing their is causing their pain. But really, what's causing their pain is the way that they're reacting, the way that they're thinking about that situation. That's what's causing the pain. Like, being in that state of thinking is generating your feelings. The thoughts you have, listen to this, the thoughts you have, those negative thoughts that you struggle with, because you believe that they really are true, you struggle with the emotions that it generates. The thoughts you have generate the feelings. Now, if you didn't have those thoughts, if you didn't believe those thoughts, it's not a question of having the thought or not, because the thoughts are going to be there. But the thing is, when you believe that, when you believe it to be true, then you struggle with the emotions that it generates. And like I said, it's inevitable. We can't control thoughts all the time. Thoughts come and go, and you can't always control the thoughts. But recognizing that, they're just thoughts, and it's actually not telling you anything about the truth. Recognizing that can extinguish the feeling that you're experiencing. And that would, if you could get rid of that feeling, because you can't get rid of the waswas completely, right? Because it keeps coming back, right? So obviously, when you reconnect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, follow the sunnah, you seek refuge in Allah, and you reconnect. And when you do that, what happens is that you are back in a state of security. You realize you're actually being protected by Allah. Always. It's like you're never away from that protection. And the minute you realize that, your thinking changes. Your feeling will change. And ultimately, the way you show up in life, your behavior, what you do will change. And this will, of course, affect your relationships. It will affect your job, your business. It will affect your health. And no doubt, it's going to affect your wealth as well. Because you're not going to be sabotaging yourself. So the way to really change everything is to focus in on the good stuff, right? Now, focus in on the good stuff, and before you even get to that point, because that's really stage 2, right? Focusing on the good stuff. Like the first step is always going to be becoming aware of the fact that, these are just thoughts. They're just waswas. They're just, random thoughts. As negative as they are, they're not even real, right? And if you could recognize that, it would change everything. You see, self-sabotage is exactly what we call it. It is sabotaging yourself. And self-sabotage is the end result of those thoughts that you are focusing on, you're believing in, right? You might be thinking, okay, that explains why I do what I do, even though I don't like my own behavior, but I can't escape the shame and the guilt that I feel afterwards, right? Because this is one of the fruits of self-sabotage. This is one of the fruits of, getting angry and, overreacting, or, lashing out, or whatever it is that you do, right? But, look, that subject of shame and guilt, that's a topic for another podcast, but we'll cover that in another podcast. But getting back to this subject, I want you to keep it simple. I want you to keep it simple so that you can see that you can actually do something about this. Because if you complicate it in your mind, you won't be able to do something about it. So what happens? This is the simple thing. What happens is that your thoughts, possibly inspired by waswas, or maybe by something that someone has said, or maybe negative, habitual thoughts that you're always thinking about, that you're always rolling around in your mind, right? Maybe you picked it up and you've been running with it for ages. It's just been there, right? Now, that doesn't matter. It really truly doesn't matter how long it's been there, because you can overcome it at any moment, because they are only thoughts, right? And thoughts can't kill you, right? If you take the life out of them, if you take the life out of the thoughts, meaning you take the belief out of them, that means you don't focus on them, right? You strengthen, and this is the antidote, right? You strengthen your connection to the all-merciful, the all-powerful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the key. I can't emphasize enough that that is the key. Because if you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you seek protection from Allah, knowing that He is the all-merciful, the most powerful, then you're going to feel safe. You're going to feel safe. And your thoughts are going to change. You're going to have some trust. You're going to have some tawakkul, some reliance. And you're going to realize that you can change your focus. Just that alone would change your focus. And that's us getting on to the second point. Like, not the first point being awareness, knowing what's going on. And the second thing is to change your focus. Focus your attention where it serves you, where it's going to help you, where it's going to empower you. You absolutely can change your own life permanently. I mean, look, when I talk about life transformation, like when I'm coaching my clients and I'm training my coaches, like we're focusing in on transformation of life permanently. We're not talking about dealing with symptoms. We're talking about solving the problem right at the core. And really, you can do that. Anyone can do that. That's the power that you have, that the All-Merciful has given you, right? Focus your attention on where it serves you. Focus on the things that are positive in your life, and you will find that the feelings will follow, and you will take action. Because feelings are the motivation. If you're looking to be motivated, it's the feeling of motivation comes from the way that you think. It's about what you focus on, right? Look, I know it's an example that I give my clients often is that it's a bit like a child that's having a tantrum, right? And what do we do as parents? As you know, we take the child who's having the tantrum out of the situation. We take them out of the room so as to change the focus, so that we can distract their attention. And I'm not telling you to be distracted with entertainment. I'm telling you to change the direction of your focus. Now, like, imagine that, a child like having a meltdown. What would you do? You talk to them about ice cream and toys. And as soon as you start talking to them about ice cream and toys, even though they're having a meltdown, like, you've now got their attention. They've now perked up. There's a little tinge of a smile there. So ask yourself, what is ice cream to you? What is ice cream to you? What is it that is going to change your focus? What's going to make you perk you up very, very quickly? Ask yourself that question. Whatever that is, offer it to yourself when you are having negative thoughts. Distract your attention. Change the focus. Because if you change the focus and you're very intentional about it, trust me, it will help you immensely. You see, your thoughts are not real until you decide to swim in it like, a child in a dirty puddle. You ever walked through a park when it's been raining and there's a dirty, muddy puddle, and the child just runs over and starts stamping up and down in it, getting themselves all dirty? Well, they're enjoying it. But we as adults, we do the same thing, except that we can see the dirt and we don't like it, but we still stamp up and down in it. We still like swim in it, play in it, even though we don't like it. So what you have to do is you have to take yourself out of that puddle, the puddle of thoughts. It's a choice. You can absolutely do it. Clean yourself up. Clean yourself up with positive thoughts, positive focus. And you can absolutely do this. You can absolutely do this. But it takes practice. It takes practice and it takes time. So you got to stay focused. Look, what you focus on will absolutely become your reality. It will grow. So I'm going to leave you with that. But before I do, listen, if you really, really want to change your life, as I said to you, as you know, I always go on about my coaches because I love training people to become the very best that they can be in their life, right? And one of the perks of this is that we are out there to serve Allah by serving the people, right? So training to rid yourself of these problems is what is the first step to changing your own life. If you are interested in more of this, I'm going to be opening up enrollment very, very soon to a coaching program where we actually focus in on mental mastery, mastering your thoughts, mastering your emotions, mastering your life, because that will affect you in your business, in your professional life. It will affect you in your relationships. It will affect you in everything. And so we're opening that up soon. If you are interested, go to QuranicConnection.tv, QuranicConnection.tv, and check out. There's loads of podcasts there. There's lots of other stuff there, but check out the certification program. Check out the emotional mastery program. Get in touch. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with that. Jazakumullah khair. Until the next one.